everybody, and today we're talking about my May TBR. Now, in principle, I just have two requirements, actually three more or less, let's say, and aside from that I'm gonna be more or less free to pick up what I want throughout the month, and so the two things that are like the highest on my priority, I guess, is first of all I'm starting my reread of Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick in order to finish out the series in the months of June and July. Mask of Mirrors is a series in which we're following a girl called Ren, who basically as a young girl was involved in a sort of like criminal gang that was run by like an older woman, and she basically escaped that life by killing that woman and escaping the city. However, she's now returning like a decade later or so, and she's going to be trying to swindle her way into a rich family to try and steal their fortune, not knowing that that family actually is in financial difficulties themselves. This series also sees us following a Rook character, so like a Robin Hood type of character who steals from the rich in order to feed the poor, and a lot of the sort of like intrigue also centers around figuring out, who that character is. This is a Venetian-inspired series, or like it's a Venetian setting world, and I really enjoyed this one a whole lot. It just had me on the edge of my seat, trying to figure out like what was going to happen, seeing all these characters with sort of like different agendas who could potentially like be working against one another, even though I loved all of them. So I really enjoyed this one. I'm very eager to dive back into it and to be continuing on this time around. Second book is my book for the dragon-based read-along that I host, so the There Be Dragons Along There Be Dragons read-along, and for that one we were reading The Bitter Twins by Jen Williams, the second book in the Winding Flame trilogy. So we'll be continuing on from where we left off in the month of March. In this book, I don't know about this book particular, but in this series we are following a society that basically used to have a sort of like vampirical race that was basically like thriving. However, they basically had this sort of like tree of life which was starting to wilt and didn't like really produce any new fruits anymore, and these productions of fruits were referred to as rains. So the 8th rain was the last rain that they have actually known. However, new threats seem to be arising. And we're basically following a cast of 3 cool characters that I really got along with well in book 1. I'm very eager to see what will be happening in book 2 after the events of the ending, the finale of book 1. Then the third book that is probably like the highest on my radar, because I kind of said yes to a buddy read for it, would be Sunbringer, I think the title is, which is by Hannah Kaner. This is the sequel to Godkiller, so the second book in that series, and I really enjoyed Godkiller a whole lot. And I've been eager to go into book 2, but it's just not been on my priority because I don't physically own it, and I didn't physically buy it because first of all I don't have book 1 physically, but also I was just like, okay, don't buy any physical books until we've gotten a few books out of this TBR at this point in time. So that's why it also kind of fell to a lower priority, but I do have access to the audiobook for it, and so I will definitely be joining that buddy read for it. In Godkiller we are following a girl who, I'm trying to think of her name because I re-listened to the audiobook for it in January, but I've forgotten the name. But basically our protagonist is a god killer. In this world, gods basically grow in strength the more people worship them. However, they can grow to like really dangerous levels, and our protagonist actually is somebody who has seen that firsthand, as her entire family was basically slaughtered by people who worshipped this one particular god, and they basically used them as human sacrifice to prove their love towards their god. In that conflict, all of her family passed away, and she basically lost a leg. And so now at this point in time, she has dedicated her life to being a god killer and to slaying gods before they're able to reach that type of power again. But early on, she meets up with this young little girl and her weird companion, who are basically escaping a situation where they're being hunted by men who are trying to kill her. And so the story continues from there. This one has a lot of nice disability representation. I also really liked some banter that was in this book, and I just really enjoyed this one. It's more fast-paced, so it's a little bit of a quicker read than I typically enjoy, but I definitely enjoyed this one a whole lot, and I'm eager to see how we're continuing on from the events of book 1. I kind of feel like it could have been a standalone, like I would have been happy with it just like with the story arc that we got in book 1, but nevertheless I'm open to seeing what book 2 does and whether I will be happy with the fact that the story is continuing. Then I'll just introduce some sort of like hopefuls for the month, I guess. First of all, let me say that my main hopeful for the month is Fathom Folk by Eliza Chan. This is a book that I would love to get to. There's just some other books that I feel more obliged to read than Fathom Folk, because this is basically the newest book on my TBR, and so as a consequence it kind of takes a lower priority in my TBR 0 project. This, however, would be nice to continue, because that means that I would be able to round off a video that I have for the unboxing for this edition. And so this one is a book that's a fantasy taking place underwater, and that is all I remember of it, and that is how I'm going to keep it. Then the probably more sort of like easy ones for me to potentially get to in the month of May are Magma by Tora Hjörleifsdottir. This is a book that I was gifted by Diana, so thank you very much for that one. This one is a relatively short one. It deals with how do we call that? Domestic abuse. So not an easy one in terms of the concept, but this one is one of the 2 books on my TBR that I have access through through Storytel. So this one is one that I can definitely get through quickly, because you know it's not going to be a very long audiobook neither. And Faith is now playing with a pen, which is very cute. Yes. And then the other one that I have access to through Storytel is Inkblood Sister Scribe by Emma Tors. So this one is a story about this sort of like library of magical books, and then this protagonist is part of the family who is basically protecting this library, and then of course some people are after these books and she has to protect them. In terms of what actually should be at the top of my TBR, I'm good when it comes to my goal of finishing everything like within a year. I don't have anything at this point in time that needs to be finished within the month of May. I finished both of those in April. I don't have anything that needs to be finished in the month of June. And so we are like ahead of schedule. We are now jumping into the month of July, but I do have a few for July, so it would be best to get some of these out of the way. And you know, like when we're looking at this idea of finishing everything within 1 year time, while I would love to prioritize Fathom Folk, for example, it is smarter for me to prioritize some of those July books at this point in time, because I have quite a few July and August ones. So like if I don't get a head start now, then I will be running into problems when we get to July, August, potentially, unless like my month of June goes extremely well, for example. So the first one of these would be Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson, which I know nothing more about except for the title. And so yeah, this is part of the Year of Sanderson, the secret project books that he released last year, which I was only up to date to for the first one, and I did finish the second one within 2023 as well, but so I still have to read the third and the fourth one. So the third one is the one that is now the oldest one on my TBR at this point in time, and the second oldest book on my TBR, and also a book that I just keep on forgetting the synopsis for. I believe I gave the synopsis for it in my TBR card update, so if you want the synopsis you can get it there, but I'm not going to revisit it in case I remember the synopsis the third time around. But that would be The Sun and the Void by Gabriela Romero La Cruz. So this is another Illumicrate book, otherwise I probably wouldn't have this on my shelves. I have heard some bad things about this from Sarah from Voice Through Words. However, we don't always align when it comes to our taste, so potentially this one is going to be one that I actually do enjoy, and the fact that I'm going into it with low expectations because of knowing that she doesn't like it is actually potentially a good thing, because the lower my expectations, the more likelihood that I'm actually gonna like it more than expected, and so like it in the end, versus like when I go into something with high expectations and have the potential for the experience to be a total letdown. Aside from that, what I can potentially still fit in there at some point in time, just because of how short it is Ruins of Smoke by João F. Silva. This is the prequel novella to the Smokesmiths, I believe, series. I read the first one of that in the month of April, so if I read this novella, I still have like the world of the Smokesmiths series like fresh in my mind, so it will be easier to read it right at this point in time. Plus it's like under 100 pages, so it's probably somewhat easy to fit it into the month of May, even if I don't get to like all the books that I previously mentioned, which I won't. But so it's a potentially one that I can still fit in just because of how short it is. So yeah, this is a list of potentials. Definitely for the month of May, I would say these are potentials. I don't have any like readathon that I'm going to be taking part in, so like aside from the ones that I'm buddy reading, like nothing is set in stone. I can basically just do whatever, and you know what I'm going to be picking up out of this is really just going to depend on my sense of like priority, my sense of discipline, I guess, and responsibility when it comes to my goal of reaching 0 TBR and my goal of, you know, finishing books before they've been on my shelves for a year. But so yeah, that's basically it for my May TBR. These are some of the potential books on there, and looking at my cart and what is left on there, I'm like, well, if I were to get through all of this, that would be really good news for my TBR cart, but I don't think that that is going to be the case, so I'll probably be left with a little bit more in the cart than what I'm currently seeing left on there. But so yeah, that is going to be it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and see you guys for the next one. Bye!